the Swole Patrol podcast. Swole Patrol, calling all members of the Swole Patrol. It is the Swole Patrol podcast. Oh, yes. With me, Mike Hathaway, and Dr. Drew Pinsky. It's fantastic. It is Swole Patrol episode, I don't know, like, let's say 4-ish. Find me on Twitter at Mike Catherwood. Dr. Drew is at Dr. Drew, of course. drdrew.com/contact and put Swole in the email, and you can get yourself your question. Maybe we'll read it here on the podcast if it's a good one. drdrew.com is where you can find everything related to Dr. Drew, including this podcast, the This Life podcast, Adam and Dr. Drew. A lot of great stuff there. Facebook.com/Swole Patrol Podcast, or on Twitter at Swole Patrol Pod as well. Our guest today is a world record holder. He is an excellent masters athlete, and he is the man that has started something of an explosion in the health and fitness world, and that explosion is of eating entirely meat. And I don't mean mostly meat. I don't mean meat with every meal. I mean everything that goes in your mouth is animal flesh. He is Dr. Shawn Baker, at Shawn Baker 1967 on Instagram, SBakerMD on Twitter, and meatheals.com is the website to get more information. Thank you for joining us, dude. The first question I have is, what got you started on eating what most people would look at as kind of a radical diet of all meat?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I've always kind of pushed myself to the limits, and, I was already low carb. I was already in a ketogenic diet, doing reasonably well. Just started reading about it, reading about some of the historical stuff, reading about some of the historical populations and how they were known for prodigious physical capacity, and they basically were on carnivorous diets like the Mongols and some of the other societies that we know existed that way. Seeing other people that did it, looking at some of the early bodybuilders, guys like Vince Garanda, where he advocated, steak and eggs diets for some of the guys in the pre-steroid days. And so I just did it as an experiment to see what it would do for my performance. And also there were a few niggly health issues that were still kind of giving me trouble. And I had been reading about people that have been doing this for 5, 10, even 20 years, who were claiming that literally all the health issues they had were going away. And so that's what got me interested in doing it.
It's nice to have an MD as a guest, because usually I've gotten to the point where I have no problem making fun of Dr. Drew and poking holes in anything he has to say, even though I'm far from a professional. But truth be told, I'm oftentimes like to show deference to his wealth of knowledge when it comes to the human body. But
when is that? What is that?
Oh, you stop it, Dr. Drew. I mean, if you're talking about anything that really is based in biology or anatomy, I go, well, listen, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, so I'll.
Look. Let me kiss your butt a little bit. You are well read on physiology. I understand you don't understand some of the fundamentals of the biochemistry, but your sense of physiology is pretty good, and you read a lot, and you're well versed in it, and you may not be able to contextualize it the way Dr. Baker and I can, because we have so much clinical experience, but don't cut yourself short. Please.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. First off, let me point out to everybody that Dr. Drew is joining us from New York City, because you were in Washington, D.C. at an opioid conference?
I was at the White House in the East Room. I got to meet, I spent a little FaceTime with Kellyanne and Jeff Sessions and Melania. Man, her accent is heavy. I mean, like, barely comprehensible now. And I was reading about her Einstein immigration nod. I have to wonder about that. But anyway, it was really good. Very, very good. I'm encouraged for the first time. They are really taking action, Mike. We'll have to do a separate thing on that. It's for the first time in 15 years, I'm hopeful we're going to turn this ship around.
That's a big compliment to the administration, because I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole. The current administration is such a divisive kind of entity. But I will say this: in your opinion, Drew, you really feel like they're on the right path to dealing with this true crisis?
There's no doubt in my mind. You know how opinionated I am about this stuff, and this is the first time I've been really encouraged. They're going down a couple of paths I'm not too hip on, but they're listening, and they're willing to meet with me. I'm going to meet with the head of the ONDCP. I've got another meeting with Kellyanne coming up, and they really, they're very open, but they're on the move. I mean, the guy that's really taking action is Jeff Sessions, and you're going to be reading about this. There's going to be a lot of stuff, and I think that's unfortunately what it's going to take to get the pain management world to stop the opioid prescribing. They're going to have to think about it and be scared about it and have some consequence if people die. and that's it. So it's time. And so I'm about the treatment side of things, and we'll kind of see how that goes. I'm advocating strongly that they should contemplate at least stepping behind and educating people about free things that are out there, like mutual aid societies. That now there's a Cochrane study coming that shows it's as effective for abstinence, sustained abstinence, as any professionally managed treatment out there. So we're getting there. We're getting there. But that's not for today.
Sure.
Not
okay.
for today.
Well, you brought
today we're talking about beef today.
We're talking about beef, and we're talking about deadlifts. And you brought up pain management as it's relating to opiates. But one thing that I've found from people, both anecdotally, talking with meatheads and young ladies, and also through research I've done, is that ketogenic diets have a huge positive effect on inflammation and body pain and things like that. Have you found that that's even been further increased with eating only meat?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things that really fascinates me about this. And I've put up this website, meatheals.com, and it's just starting to get all these people that are demonstrating that things like rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, psoriatic arthritis, lupus, all these conditions that were considered basically, autoimmune or, progressive diseases that you can't get rid of, that require great deals of pain medication, immunosuppressive drugs. These people are getting rid of these diseases just by going on these all-meat diets, which is totally crazy, because as an orthopedic surgeon, all I would see is people with arthritis, no matter what the type it was, would always progress. You would manage it with medication, injections, finally surgeries. And even still, then their other joint would wear out. And so what I'm seeing now is people are literally almost curing these diseases, if I can use that term. I know it's a strong term to use, but it's fascinating to me. And it's not just joint pain, it's psoriasis, it's eczema. And the other thing that might interest you, Dr. Drew, is there are a lot of people that are claiming that their mental health has improved significantly. They're finding out that they can quit smoking, they can quit drinking, they can give up caffeine, they're giving up these addictive substances just because of the diet, which I think is pretty remarkable. Obviously, there's more work that needs to be done.
We got to figure out what that is. Because I don't not believe it. I just want to understand what it is, because it's. You and I both know GI physiology is so fantastically complex that whatever this mechanism is, or whether it's an adjustment, it's going to be a hard thing to figure out. But the overlap between rheumatic disease and mental health is very complex, right? And pain and trauma and all, it all kind of goes in the same soup. Why then would this kind of diet? I almost wonder if it's just doing self-care. I don't know. I don't have an opinion.
Right,
so we have
right.
to figure it out. Do you have any idea about the physiology yet? Do you have any hunch about that?
Well, I think what I'm seeing consistently, and again, this is in contrast to a lot of what I call propaganda about there, is people that go on this diet notice profound decreases in generalized systemic inflammation. We see that both clinically with things like joint pain and digestive health, but also in their laboratory studies. We're seeing people's C-reactive proteins plummeting. We're seeing their insulin status improve significantly, as long as other markers of diseases like HDL, triglyceride ratios, blood pressure going down. And so I think my thought is most of these diseases probably share an underlying sort of basic cause, and that's why we see so much overlap between cancer and diabetes and heart disease and mental illness. All these things kind of share. They all, if you look at the associational studies are all kind of related. When one goes up, they all go up. And so I think when you can get at the heart of whatever's causing one to improve, generally those other things get better as well. And so it may just be, maybe it's just systemic inflammation that's driving some of this mental health issues. And obviously there's a lot of chemistry. I look at it as we don't know very much. I know we know a lot, but we don't know very much relatively. It's still kind of a black box. We can see the input, we can figure out what the output is. And I think we spend a lot of time, there's lots and lots of studies and lots of money that's poured into all these studies, and we find these little biochemical pathways, and people try to make these big contextual leaps in saying that, that applies to everybody in all situations, which we know is not the case. And so I always kind of cringe when I see these new studies come out and people think they've solved the problem, and that generates a bunch of supplement sales, and, people are no better off than they were, 5 years ago. And so I think it's, to me, I think it's a hard problem.
To that end, I want to talk about my own specific thing. And then, Mike, after we talk about this one little thing I'm interested in, have Dr. Baker tell the audience the whole story here. His story is fascinating. Yep. I heard you tell it I just got back from a run around the reservoir at Central Park. The last time I took that run, I was listening to your interview, just coincidentally, with Joe Rogan. I was enraptured by it. So I'd love you to tell that story again. But before you do, here's what occurred to me as I was listening to it. I have bad genetics. I have a Lynch syndrome. My dad had all kinds of vascular disease, never smoked, never did anything like that, but he ended up with not just coronary disease later in life, but large vessel, aortic thromboembolic disease.
But you have tremendous penis genetics, Drew. I mean, let's not overlook that. Let's not overlook that.
Thankfully, there's always something good comes along with the bad. That's why it evolved. But anyway, his whole life made it his point to pull all the fat off all the steaks that we ate a lot of that kind of stuff growing up. All the fat, he'd everybody's fat, he'd eat it all the time, and he would do it with sort of gusto and sort of massive denial that he had sort of his sense of the physiology was that this didn't matter and that it was all being overstated, and he's just going to eat fat all day, which he did.
And your dad a physician too, right?
Yeah, he was a family practitioner, and he ended up with a aorta that looked like the surface of the moon. It was complete mess, and started throwing microemboli to his head. So, and I have hyperlipidemia. I have essentially what we call the metabolic syndrome. And so my question is, are people like me, because I prefer to eat the way you're doing it, and I'm fascinated by the whole thing, are people like me at any kind of added risk? Or do we have to be looked at as a separate genetic subcategory that really we don't know whether this would be good for them or not? And now let me just little corollary to that. You've already said that CRP goes down, insulin resistance goes down, and that should improve my syndrome, but I don't know. Who knows? We have to do those studies probably.
Well, I mean, obviously no one can say with 100% certainty on any of this stuff. It's a lot of it's hard to predict what you're going to die of, and a lot of people will say, you're going to get this or that 20 years down the road. You can never be sure about that. I think if we look at the evolving body of, literature as it regards to cardiovascular disease in particular, we're seeing more and more of a trend towards underlying inflammatory disease. Obviously there's a mix with insulin in there, but then how that impacts and how that interacts with the different lipoproteins, seems to be evolving. We're seeing that probably there might be more to do with something called remnant cholesterol, which is kind of looking at your your total cholesterol minus your HDL minus your LDL, and that gives you something called a remnant cholesterol, and that may be more predictive for heart disease. Now, again, these are general population studies. Everyone has a little different, unique situation. You can't say for sure. I will say that looking at people that do this, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people's labs now as we're collecting this data. The majority of the people, like I said, they will notice improvements in their triglycerides and their HDL. Their triglycerides will go down, their HDL will go up. What happens with their total LDL cholesterol is variable. Some people will go up quite a bit. Some people it won't move. Some people it will go down. And I think there's a really interesting fellow. He's an engineer that was perplexed by this problem because he was on a ketogenic diet and he felt great. Like he said, he was like, I feel the best I've ever felt in my life, and yet my total cholesterol is over 400. What he did was he continued to take his own lab tests. Like every couple of days, he would draw his own blood. He just, paid for it because he was an engineer trying to figure this out. And what he figured out was, and this is interesting, that cholesterol was being trafficked in accordance to overall sort of energy balance in the body. So how much you've eaten. If you've eaten a lot over the last 4 or 5 days, your liver is less inclined to send out fatty acids in the blood because it doesn't need to. And so cholesterol just kind of moves in flux with that energy. So if you're full of, if you're filled up with fuel, your liver doesn't have as much desire or need to send out the cholesterol. So what he was seeing is his cholesterol would change 100 points in a matter of 3 or 4 days, which to me is really fascinating because we make all these decisions with regard to medications on a single cholesterol reading, which we might get once a year. And if it can change 100 points in 3 or 4 days, you kind of have to put question into that stuff. So it's evolving. So I don't know the answer. I know that to me, and I'm just a stupid orthopedic surgeon that hits stuff with a hammer, right? I mean, but to me, from a common sense standpoint, if you go on a whatever diet, exercise routine, and your joints get better, your digestion gets better, your libido gets better, your mental health gets better, your skin gets better, your body confidence gets better, everything gets better. right? And you feel great. And the only marker that goes up is cholesterol. You have to question, is that cholesterol really an indicator of disease in this situation, in this context, or is it maybe a red herring and we need to look at something else? And so I think that's just a question.
I'm going to bet it's a mix. I'm going to bet it's a mix. I'm going to bet that for some people it is and some people it isn't. And that it scared me early in life, and so I tried everything to get my stuff in line from a dietary standpoint. And I just took a whiff, a half of a quarter of Zetia, and it plummeted. So I'm a cholesterol absorber. And then I put a tiny bit of atorvastatin or something in there. And I started that early. It corrected everything. And my calcium score, you can do these tests that sort of give you an idea of what's going on in the lining of your arteries. Again, my dad didn't have coronary artery disease. He had aortic vascular disease. It's a very specific genetic problem and kind of rare. And my calcium score is 0. So I feel like I've done something right, and I could probably keep doing this and switch to your diet. You know what I mean? I want to deadlift like you. That's what I'm more interested in.
You brought up cholesterol, and that's what leading back to the
I know.
changes.
I get it.
No. But I was thinking about how you talked about the changes in mental health. We began this conversation talking about how there, at least anecdotally, we're seeing beneficial reactions to the diet when it comes to mental health, anxiety, depression, things like that. Is there any correlation maybe to the fact that the increase in dietary cholesterol is helping the hormonal profile? The testosterone's going up, and
for sure.
We know that hormonal profile has a huge, profound effect on someone's mental health, or at least in their mood.
Well, I mean, like I said, I think that the point that Dr. Drew made was very important. I think that coronary artery calcium scan is very important, because one of the problems I have, and people kind of criticize me for not jumping all over blood tests, I say they're so variable, they're so reactive, to different things. And so the tests like that, where you're getting an imaging study or even a biopsy or something like that, that's going to give you a better idea what's really going on, where these blood tests are so transient. Like I said, I've tested all my blood. I'm going to talk about that on Rob Wolf's show in detail, but I did several of them, and I could see things change dramatically in a period of a couple of days. If I worked out, my LFTs would go up. If I didn't work out, they'd be normal. And so all these things that we take a lot of stock on in the blood, I think we kind of overreact to, and people get hung up on that. And you really need these really more definitive tests like coronary artery calcium scan, or some of the vascular imaging in the carotid arteries, or wherever it may be, or you can look at. I mean, and a lot of people think this doesn't matter, but I think body composition has a huge impact on our health, and I think having enough muscle has a huge impact on our health. And people, that criticize the diet say, well, it's only about vanity, it's only about being strong. I said, no, that's important. Those are incredibly important markers of health as well, longevity and function. If you have, there's quite a few studies out there showing that if you have poor quadriceps strength, your longevity is shortened. So you need to maintain this stuff, and it's very important. I know Dr.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm in my 50s. I don't know how old you are now, Doctor, but it becomes very important as you get older. Is he 70? You look great for 70.
No, I'm in my 50s. And here's my screwed up stuff. Is weightlifted my whole life. You mentioned some of those guys from the 70s. They used to work out at Bill Pearl's gym. I was around Dave. I can't remember all the names of those guys. Dave Johns and Bill Pearl, and the newcomers were Ferrigno and Arnold back when I was around those guys. And there was a lot of steak and eggs. There's a lot of low carbohydrate stuff going around then, and heavy lifting. But I always had back problems and neck problems, and every time I'd go to work my legs, I'd start getting in trouble, and I could never afford a machine that would sort of work around that. Last time Mike and I did a podcast, who was it that convinced me? I'm forgetting his name.
Matt Vincent convinced you to get the reverse hyper.
Yeah, Louis Simmons reverse hyper. I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Well, and he just convinced me to just do it. Just start lifting heavy. You got to power lift, and that's that. And I started doing it, and goddamn it, a lot of my joint stuff got better for a while. It's kind of waxing and waning now. But I definitely noticed a difference and definitely feel better. Definitely. Nice.
Well, you're going to, like I said, muscle is a metabolic sink, and so you need to, that muscle mass is going to protect you from metabolic disease, and so it's important to do. From my opinion, as an orthopedic guy, a strong joint tends to be a healthier joint than a weak joint. So even if you have joint issues, I still think you should figure out how to strengthen those joints. Now, whether it's one exercise that works pretty well for low back pain for a lot of people, and Stuart McGill is a big proponent of this, is a kettlebell swing. And so I think that's a pretty effective exercise you might want to incorporate as well for back health.
All right.
Yeah, that's
heavy.
I do. I mean, I swing a 176-pound kettlebell.
Holy mackerel!
Done it for 50 reps.
Oh crap! I don't have room for that.
No, but I mean, you could get one that's you get one that's 80 to 100 pounds. We'll build up to that and swing that for reps because I don't know what are you, about 210, something like that, 220. I don't know how big you are.
Weight? I try to stay around 190.
190. Okay. Well, I mean, something around that weight, maybe 80 pounds would be, I think, a reasonable one to play with. You might have to start lighter initially. Learn some good form. You can just do that. You can just do the Russian swing. You don't have to do the American swing. I think the Russian swing's just as effective and probably more effective in my view.
See, Mike was trying to get me to do the Turkish get-ups or whatever those things were called. The hell was that?
Yeah, the Turkish get-up.
Well, the only problem, and we talked about this, Mike and I talked about this, that's a skill, right? Turkish get-up takes a while to learn that skill. There's some core stability and some things you got to do some balancing, but it's like, I don't know, like 8 or 9 steps to do a Turkish get-up.
Yeah.
I've done them in the past, can't remember. But so the question is your time better served doing something else? And for me, with a kettlebell, I think swings are the best, most efficient, effective use of a kettlebell.
Really strengthens the posterior chain. It gives you metabolic health.
Well, you can condition with it. You can get, you can build your glutes, posterior chain. You can get your abs going with that stuff. It helps with back rehab. But there's a lot of things you can do with a kettlebell, certainly.
And one of the things that I've been fascinated about with you is that it makes perfect sense to me that you eat all meat and that oftentimes it's fattier cuts and that's all you're eating and you can lift heavy. What doesn't seem to compute, just from my boneheaded view of training, is that you also dominate really what are traditionally looked at as very glycolytic things, like a 500-meter C2 row, a 1,000-meter row. You kick super at. In fact, you're a world record holder for masters. How have you been able to kind of bypass what most people look at as something, a necessary carbohydrate activity like C2 row, rowing or some other things I've seen you do that are really, really demanding on that energy system. How have you been able to maintain that and not only maintain it, excel at it, only eating meat?
Yeah. So I mean, again, I'll go back. I'll just kind of backstory a little bit.
Please.
Evolution. If we look what humans evolved on, and we can go back to Homo erectus, and there's some pretty good anthropologic data on.
I
this
rented
stuff.
that. It's very avant-garde. Homo erectus.
Well, but I mean, but they show that those guys probably were subsisting on mostly things like elephants and mammoths, because if you look at it from a hunting perspective, what's going to get you the most bang for your buck? Mm-hmm. Going out and killing one of these 12,000-pound beasts. They knew how to preserve. It shows what they knew how to preserve the meat. It was very fatty meat. That's what we evolved on largely, and so it was a very efficient strategy because you kill one animal, you can live for 6 months. It's very easy hunting, once you figured out how to do this, and we clearly did. There are populations, the Gravettians in Central Europe, they killed mammoths like crazy, and that's what we did until those species basically went extinct, whether it was humans wiping them out or climate change, and so that was a natural tendency of what humans were eating. Now, for me, it's just a matter of adaptation. I can tell you that. Again, when I go over my blood work with Rob, you'll see why, my glycogen stores are probably just as good as anyone else's. I probably burn more fat at a higher intensity. I think Jeff Folek and some other guys showed that with some of their studies at higher intensity levels than other people's do. And what happens with that is I don't get beat up as much metabolically because I'm, using fat at higher intensities. Now, when I get to the very top ends, I'm probably definitely tapping into my glycogen stores. Weightlifting, like we said, single reps, double reps, it's all creatine phosphate system, right? Once you get into that 30, 45 seconds, 1 minute, minute 30, you're really burning through glycogen, to do that stuff. And I broke several world records. In fact, I broke 19 world records last year as a meat eater, on the concept too, just breaking my own record over and over again. But I found for me it was just a matter of adapting, and I think our bodies will do that. You'll do what. The problem is all these ketogenic studies that they do where the people that say you got to have carbs is they shut them off at about 3 to 4 weeks. They usually have the funding for that. They take some people, they take them, and they try to adapt them. And most of the time, 3 to 4 weeks is barely enough to physically adapt to the diet. And then they say, well, their performance wasn't as good. There's some recent studies out there that have been done at 12 weeks, and they're showing actually if you give them 12 weeks, these guys are actually doing better, and they're actually outperforming the carb eating groups. And so for me, I felt it took me, when I went to a ketogenic diet, about 6 months to adapt. And then when I went on a full carnivore diet, it took me another further 2 months to adapt to that sort of different energy system. And then once I hit 2 months in, my strength started going up pretty impressively. For someone who'd already been training for close to 4 decades, I saw about I calculated about an 8% increase in strength, which is big.
Sure.
When you're already at the top, at the top of your genetic potential.
But tell your whole story. The way you told it for Joe, you just painted a beautiful picture of what you experienced. Please tell the whole thing. How you got to this? We're sort of piecing it together now. But tell the arc. How you started with this, how you improved, what you thought about it, where you are now, and how you ramped it up.
Yeah, so like I said, I've been an athlete my whole life. I was I played rugby in New Zealand. I did strongman competitions, powerlifting. I was close to an 800-pound deadlifter when I was younger. As a drug-free guy, I hit a 772 and just missed a 783. That was when that was in my medical school. I did that, and then I was in third year medical school, and then residency, and then everything goes to shit because you can't train as much. But then so I was doing all this stuff, and then I got in my mid 40s, and I'm sitting there, and my blood pressure's going up. I'm not sleeping very well. I probably have sleep apnea. I'm probably 285 pounds of that kind, because I was competing in Highland Games like your last guest Matt Vincent was, and you got to be big. You got to be a big guy to do that stuff. And then I was having probably metabolic syndrome. I'm sure I did. I didn't formally test it, but I have no doubt about it. And I was getting, I couldn't lose body fat. I remember when I was 40, I was going to say I'm going to get some abs when I'm 40.
Yeah,
didn't happen. I dieted, I exercised, didn't happen. It happened when I was 48 after I switched to a different diet. But I just noticed that despite the fact that I was running sprints, lifting hard, training, doing everything I'm still doing now. And my body wasn't responding. I was just getting, and I was getting joint pain, and I was starting to just kind of accept the fact, yes, I'm not Superman. I'm getting older. It's just the things that happen when you get older. And then I started saying, okay, at least I'm going to do a diet. And so what I did, I did the low fat, almost vegetarian, a little bit of lean meat, a little bit of lean. It was mostly fish. I was listening to who's ripped,
Tony Horton?
No. Older guy. He wrote. He's a bodybuilder that wrote Ripped. Clarence Bass. And I went on Clarence Bass's diet. High fiber. He called it horse chaw. He just load up on the fiber, eat all that stuff. Almost vegetarian diet. And what happened is I lost weight. I got leaner. I was working out like a maniac. I'd get up in the morning before I went to work, before I went to clinic, jump rope, hit 1,000, 2,000 jump ropes. And then I live close to the hospital, so I'd drive back home, get a weight workout in, get back home, play with my kids, put my kids to bed, and then work out again, then do another bunch of jump ropes. So I was training 3 times a day. My caloric intake was dropped by 50% probably. I went from probably 6,000, 7,000 calories a day because I was 280, eating that much, to about 3,000 calories, 2,500 calories. And I did that for about 3 to 6 months, maybe about 6 months. Dropped about 50 pounds, and I dropped 50 pounds in 3 months, I remember. And I was glad, I was like, oh, cool, I can do it. But, I was just not a happy camper. I was irritable. I was kind of pissed off at work. The nurses didn't like me. I was just hungry all the friggin' time, and I couldn't maintain that. And so then I was just like, after 6 months of this, I was like, I got to do something else because I'm a disciplined, athletic guy. I'm a competitive guy. I've got discipline. I've got willpower, but this is just like constant gnawing hunger.
It does something you can live with. And back in my bodybuilding days, the 6-7 times feedings a day, mixture of low fat, protein, and carbohydrates, it does seem so wildly unsatisfying that you even if you haven't done any scientific examination of it, it feels like you are going against the grain of what your body wants. Because like you said, you're eating more than ever as far as frequency, and oftentimes a lot of bulk, a lot of roughage, and the chicken breasts and whatnot. But you're constantly hungry, and you feel hormonally you don't feel very good. Like you're tired, even though you can't sleep, you're tired, and libido goes to shit. It doesn't necessarily feel like just from a boneheaded point of view, like you're doing the right thing for your body, Well,
again, we can go back to an evolution perspective. If what I suppose is true, which and again, I have I wasn't there. I don't have a time machine. I can't say. I can look at what some of the evidence shows. It compels me to believe this. I don't think human beings spent their day eating 6 times a day. I just don't think it was. I just don't think it was practical.
Yeah,
I just don't think that was
impossible.
I think it was impossible, and there's no way. The only way we can do it now is because we have modern transportation systems, food storage systems. We have a snack culture. We have a huge processed food industry that's telling us to snack every 2 to 3 hours. My kids are in school; they have to have a snack, or their brain falls off every 2 hours. I didn't have that stuff when I was a kid. I made it through school without having to snack every 25 minutes, and now it's like being forced upon us, and I think it's just a disaster.
We have to take a real quick break, but we will start right back up with Dr. Baker discovering the solution to all his woes in his mid to late 40s.
Well, we're so pleased to have Hydra Light back. Hydra Light is something that we in my family use just about every day, and it is simply the best oral rehydration product I have ever seen. And there are many reasons you should keep some around. I got the flu. I relied on Hydra Light because I knew it would rehydrate me the way an IV fluid would. We all have heard about the flus and the diarrheas, and they all knock you out. Staying well hydrated is critical to getting over these conditions. Even if you manage to avoid getting infected, your schedule is half as busy as mine. Getting 8 glasses of water a day isn't likely to happen. And you don't need it if you've got the proper hydration product, Hydra Light. That is the beauty. Whether you're sick or not, you're going to absolutely benefit from proper balance of sodium, glucose, and water. Hydra Light does this better than a sports drink or water alone. That's right, better. And it comes in great flavors like orange, berry, lemonade. It's available in a pre-mixed powder. My personal preference is little effervescent tablets. You can simply drop in a bottle of water or a glass of water, and you're done. You got it, and you are rehydrated. And compared to sports drinks, Hydra Light delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes with 75% less sugar. I know. Don't buy into the hype of the brands. Use Hydra Light. It's a better product. I'm telling you, I had intended to invent it. They got there first, so I'm all behind them. Hydra Light solutions are appropriate for all ages, and each bottle or package includes easy-to-follow dosing instructions. Order Hydra Light today at hydralight.com/DRDREW. That is hydralight.com/Dr. Drew. And for a limited time, our listeners can save 30% on Hydra Light. We actually buy in bulk in our family. So we're going to click through. Believe me, just click the banner on my site and use the code DRDREW18. That is DRDREW18.
All right, it is the Swole Patrol. Our guest today, Dr. Shawn Baker. Go to meetheals.com. Dr. Drew joining us from New York City. So where we stopped, you were at essentially the point where you were following a more traditional kind of bodybuilder diet, low-fat, moderate carb, the whole thing, eating frequently, and you were miserable. And
right.
That's I guess now you're mid to late 40s.
Yeah, I was probably about 45 at that point, and I got lean. I lost about 50 pounds, but I was just this is not sustainable for me. Started reading some of the paleo stuff, saw some of Mark Sisson's stuff, thought, well, that sounds pretty cool. I did that, adopted it, had fun with that, felt remarkably better, I think, including more animal protein, more fat in my diet, made me feel better, just both mentally and physically. Gym performance started to improve. At that point, I just continued to read. I was fascinated by like Gary Taubes's book, Nina Teicholz's book. I started reading these things and it just sort of clicked with me. And then I started, one of the things as a surgeon is, we were constantly battling patients who were obese, and we're constantly saying, you got to lose weight for surgery, you're going to have complications, infections, but they never lost weight. You would tell them to go lose weight, don't eat as much, exercise more, and they might lose 2 or 3 pounds. And this is a female who's 220 pounds at 5'4", and you got to get her down to whatever BMI of 35 to operate on her. And they would lose, a pound or 2, or maybe 5 pounds, and then the next time you see them, they'd put it all back on. And they're in your office just crying because they can't lose weight. And finally you say, okay, we're just going to do the surgery anyway. And most of the time they do fit well. But, again, you're putting at more risk, because of infectious complications. Well, once I started doing this ketogenic stuff, I said, well, let's just try that. And then what I was seeing was, generally a lot of them were losing weight, the ones that would do it. But the other thing that was more remarkable to me is a lot of them who we were setting up for surgery said their joint pain went away. And we were like, well, why the hell why are we going to do the surgery on you if you don't have any knee pain? So that was really remarkable to me. And I started seeing this over kind of frequently. And then I started, sort of changing my practice, to kind of support that. And that didn't go over too well with administration. But anyway, I felt I was doing the right thing for the patients. But back to my story, I continued to, just kind of read. And then I kind of finally, just more out of curiosity, I said, I'm going to try this meat-only diet for 30 days, and I did it last December, December 2016. I did it. I was in France with my girlfriend's family, had, the regular food. The last time I had a vegetable, I think it was a Brussels sprout. It was in 2016. And, so I did that. I went on the diet, and I literally just felt really, really good. And I said, well, this is kind of cool. And I still had a little bit of chronic quadriceps tendonitis that I'd had literally for something like a decade and a half. I'd always had this quad tendonitis. It would never go away. And as an orthopedic surgeon, you kind of know what the options are for tendonitis. And I tried everything, eccentric stretching, compression stuff, all the things that I would tell patients to do, and it never went away. It just always bothered me. And then I noticed about 3 or 4 weeks into this stuff that just went away, and it's never come back, which is really shocking to me. But when I got done with the 30 days, I went back and I said, well, I did the 30 days. That was fun. Let's go back to your regular diet. And I did, and I started eating, the regular kind of ketogenic stuff, kind of mix the stuff in there. Did that for a day or so, and I just literally didn't feel as good. My digestive health wasn't good. I had some aches and pains start to creep back. My mood and my energy was just not as good. And I said, well, I'd just rather feel good. So I went back to this crazy all meat thing, and then I've just been doing it now for 15 months. And the weird thing is I continue. Like the deadlifts I did yesterday, that's a PR for me. Coming back, or at least a PR in the last decade.
It was 500 something for 10 reps?
It's 505 for 10. I could have probably done 15, I think.
Oh, that's impressive.
So, it was no belt. It was a trap bar, so it's kind of, trap bars are a little easier than a regular bar. But
yeah, but only because you're incorporating different muscles. It's not as if you're not lifting 505 pounds. It's still darn impressive.
Right, yeah,
right?
It's still a decent lift. There's not a lot of 50-year-old guys. And again, I don't take steroids. I don't take testosterone. I don't do any of that stuff. So there's not a lot of guys my age that can do that stuff. And like I said, I can still dunk basketballs. Because my joints don't hurt, which is, I think, an effect of the diet. I can train real hard. My recovery is really good. I guarantee I can walk in the gym and do 500 for 10 again today without any difficulty, even though I did it yesterday. That's what I found. I found when I was breaking world records on the concept too, I could break them day after day. One day I'd break the record, the next day I'd break the record again, because the recovery has been so tremendous. And this is what we see in the historical accounts of the Eskimo or the Inuit population. People would say they had remarkable physical capacities to just continue to do work, and that's what I'm finding. And it's now that this is becoming a little bit of a thing where people are trying it, I'm getting a lot of athletes on Instagram telling me, man, I'm hitting all these PRs in the gym. My training is crazy. I have recovery. I can recover for days. I don't have any. It's pretty bizarre. I think it's to me, I think it's a little less metabolically doesn't beat you up as much than another nutritional strategy does. And I think nutrition is just, in my view, very optimal. I think we are optimally designed to digest and process meat. I think that's just what humans really do well. If we look at it, again, I make this argument that we are apex predators, which we clearly are. We can kill and eat, and we have eaten every animal on the planet. It's not that I'm advocating that we do that, but that's what humans did. We've demonstrated that capacity. And what does an apex predator eat? They pretty much eat meat. And it's more efficient. Plants have, there's some nutrients in there, but they're harder to get at. They come with anti-nutrients. They have a lot of phytochemicals that are, we talk about phytonutrients, but there's a lot of things like oxalates and salicylates and phytates and, cyanides and, glycolytic alkaloids and all these, or glycoalkaloids and all these other things that may have a negative consequence. We don't really look at that because we have this epidemiology that we've sort of taken as face value. The epidemiology is really based on bad science. If we look at what the body of knowledge is about where we think fruits and vegetables are good for us, is it's mostly epidemiology. We have some isolated plant compound studies on isolated biochemical processes, but when you look at the data where it's actually, let's give a randomized controlled trial of people eating fruits and vegetables, human beings, and see what happens. There's only about 20 of those studies that have actually been done. Half of those showed a negative outcome. The other half showed a positive, and it tended to be fruit was a little more beneficial than vegetables. And then Dr. Georgia Eade, who's a psychiatrist, who's doing some brilliant work on this stuff, has demonstrated that and went through all the research and done that. So I want to give her credit on that. But so we don't have just, again, most of our nutritional knowledge, or what we call dogma, is really based on some shaky foundations.
Oh, for sure. That's sort of Mike and my credo. Is that things that is dogma, it disregarded essentially.
One of the main factors of the all meat diet that Dr. Drew was very much in support of for a while now, and I still don't really understand it. From a layperson's point of view, how is it that you're so regular? I'm on 2 weeks now. I'll just be finishing up 2 weeks of eating the carnivore diet, and I've been following along with you on at the carnivore diet, your training protocol with the carnivore diet, my poo is fine. And not to get too descriptive, but I've always thought, hey, to be regular, you need fiber. And I'm eating 0 grams of fiber, and I'm doing fine. I know you're doing fine. Chris Bell, our mutual friend, talks about how he's pooping just fine. What is it about the human body that can become regular without fiber, and why is it that we've been told for so long that fiber is essential to regularity?
Yeah, well, I mean, the benefits for fiber go back to the 1960s. Dr. Burkitt, whose name is synonymous with Burkitt's lymphoma, observed African populations, and he was looking at the fact that they were generally happier. These indigenous African populations were generally healthier than the Western populations. And what he noticed was they ate a little bit more fiber than we did. So he basically said fiber is necessary in the diet because of that. Now, what he didn't sort of comment on was the fact they ate no processed food and sugar at the time, which
right.
Dr. Yudkin and some of these other guys that were the sugar guys said, no, wait, that's the reason. But that sort of fell out of favor. There's a whole bunch of stuff about how the sugar industry might have sort of influenced dietary policy through some backhanded techniques. But, fiber, is something that will fill up your colon. There's no doubt about it. You'll have bigger poops. You'll have more poops. Is that an advantage in the grand scheme of life? I don't think there's any real great data that supports that. There's some epidemiology that shows people that eat more plants and vegetables, have some better outcomes health-wise. But again, the epidemiology is so confounded, because you have these people that eat meat. Most people that eat meat are at McDonald's eating the burger, fries, the shake, the Coke, and that's where we get these meat eaters from. This is who the epidemiology people are comparing to. They're not looking at me, a guy who works out, cares about his health. I mean, I care about my health. I'm not doing this stuff because I have a suicide mission. I honestly think I'm getting healthier this way, and I would argue, at least on a performance standpoint, and what I feel is healthy, I'm healthy. But fiber, the benefits of fiber are contextually based upon what the rest of your diet is. So what does fiber do? It lowers your cholesterol. There's some studies that show that. Now the question is that truly important or not? I think there's debate about that. The other thing that fiber does is it blunts the glucose, spike. So if you eat an apple, you're going to have less of a glucose spike than if you drink apple juice, right?
Sure.
Because the fiber mitigates that. If you're on a carnivorous diet, it's a moot point because you're not taking in the sugar anyway, right? So it has no
glucose.
You're taking no glucose in there. Now, as far as bowel regularity, what happens to a lot of people is, and this is another horrible myth that's been perpetuated. Meat does not sit there and rot in your colon. We have ileostomy patients that have clearly demonstrated, if you look at an ileostomy patient is a patient who's had their colon removed for whatever reason, cancer, diverticulitis or something like that. And if you look what comes out of the ileostomy pouch after they eat meat, it's just a little bit of liquid. Okay, that's why a lot of people on a carnivorous diet actually have diarrhea, not constipation, because they just have liquid that comes out there. So there's no real material, and then the colon's job is just to reabsorb some of the water from the liquid and adjust some minerals. But the other component of your poop is bacteria. You still have bacteria in your colon. It's just the microbiome changes a little bit. So what you're getting is whatever residual amount of material you can get after you absorb the water from the meat, and then the bacteria mixed in, and you have a regular poops. They're smaller, they're less frequent. My 5-year-old kid, his poop is about 6 times the size of mine.
Right.
And I eat 5 pounds of meat a day, and I'm looking at the guy, and he eats fruits and vegetables still, and he's like he'll fill up the whole damn bowl. And I'm like, damn kid, where'd you get that? But I mean, and so it's. The other arguments about fiber, there's some good, interesting studies on chronic constipation and patients that have, how they've dealt with that. And so there's some neat studies that show that people that go on low fiber or zero fiber diets actually resolve their chronic constipation. Their symptoms of gas, bloating, and so on and so forth go away when they get rid of fiber in their diet. And that's what you'll see now with many thousands upon thousands of patients that do this diet. They say that they no longer have discomfort with digestion. They no longer have flatulence. They no longer have, bloating or gas. People with Crohn's disease are getting rid of symptoms of Crohn's disease, or getting rid of symptoms of ulcerative colitis, which I think is tremendous. Irritable bowel syndrome, many of those people are noticing significant improvements. There's other studies. There's a guy named Peary. Dr. Peary did a colonoscopy series on about 1,400 patients, and he stratified those into quartiles looking at fiber content and diverticula. diverticular, those little out pouches that come from the colon that will later become blocked up and cause diverticulitis when they get infected or inflamed. He saw that the people who ate the most fiber and had the most bowel movements had the highest incidence of diverticula, which, again, it goes counter to what we've been told based on the epidemiology study. But I think when you actually look at this stuff, critically, I think we have to, again, question some of the stuff we've kind of swallowed as gospel for decades now.
The other surprising aspect.
I
Go
think,
ahead, Drew.
Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was going to say that I agree with everything Dr. Baker's saying, and I'll even jump on a little harder and say that, the human, and particularly American and British preoccupation with their bowel movements is bizarre, and you're no exception, Mike.
I love it.
Your colon just pulls water out of your stool, and maybe the bacterial sort of makeup of the colon has something to do with something. We don't really know that yet, but there might be something there. And, a certain kinds of fiber may affect that, but you're really talking about a therapeutic intervention for somebody that has something going on, which is really what bulk is used for. Things like psyllium husk, that kind of thing. Those are therapeutic interventions. Now, the meat diet could also be a therapeutic intervention for similar stuff, but the generalizing about bulk, again, it's been way overstated. As you know, Mike, so many dietary things have been overdone.
Sure.
And I have diverticulitis. I did diverticulosis. Bulk has helped me with, I was having multiple recurrences. Bulk helped me. That's sort of the standard GI intervention for that. But again, the meat diet could help me maybe more. Who knows?
Well,
that's not been studied yet.
Again,
so
I just look at it from just a mechanistic point of view. If the only thing that's coming out of your small intestine is liquid, I just don't see how that contributes to diverticulitis. I think diverticulitis are these little seeds and things that are indigestible that get caught up in these pouches, and so
it probably doesn't work like that. It probably doesn't work like that. And I know I get diverticulitis essentially when I'm fatigued. Something happens. I don't know what the hell it is, but I did notice that I'm not fatigued, like severely overworked and not sleeping and that kind of thing. And they started kicking up as a post-surgical phenomenon after a prostatectomy. So I don't know what the hell that was. But be that as it may, it has gotten better, and it's not diet related for me. And I want to go back to Mike and his preoccupation with his poo. This is the other part you need to know, Dr. Baker. Is Mike, the poo sits there until, at your convenience, you put it out. That you don't have to go running to the bathroom like some sort of child who hasn't yet figured out how to control his bowel movements. It's something that can wait until you're ready, and then you go ahead when you have an opportunity and do your thing. It doesn't affect your health.
Maybe you can, because you had a robot rip your prostate out and your butthole's nice and wide from years of use. But me, I have a tight little apple, and when I get a log pushing at it, Drew, it's got to be dealt with immediately. It's got to be dealt with ASAP. Okay, so that's the deal. One of the things I've found fascinating with you in particular, Dr. Baker, is that you don't eat just meat. You eat a fuck ton of meat. Like you were saying, 5 pounds a day is an average day for you. How is it that not only you, but many of the people that you put up on Twitter, that are showing great results, they're losing weight in what has to be a hypercaloric state?
Yeah, well, I would say, my average is probably 4 pounds a day, but it'll go up to 6 some days depending on my training. It's kind of interesting. My appetite will respond to how I'm training. If I'm training particularly hard, it's like you would imagine, like would make sense. And so I think, again, I'm not going to dismiss the importance of calories to some degree. If I were to eat 12 pounds of steak a day, assuming I could do that, so if I could force myself to do it, I would probably gain weight and probably gain body fat. But I think, we have this natural, again, I think human beings are animals. I know it's crazy. I know it's hereditary.
Hereditary?
To say that. But, humans are just animals, and we respond to our appetite. If we're eating the right food, our appetite should regulate when we're supposed to eat and how much we're supposed to eat. And I think, one of the things that's interesting, I know Jose Antonio has done some studies on protein overfeeding studies. And I know he's taken a group of resistance-trained men. One arm they gave them a normal amount of food. The other arm they gave them an extra 200 grams of protein, which is an extra 800 calories a day. And they ran them through for, 6, 8, 12 weeks. And they noticed the guys that got the extra protein gained no additional weight, even though they were in more of a caloric surplus. And so I think protein uniquely has some metabolic differences in the way it's processed. Now, every calorie you eat every morsel or gram of food you eat does not go into converting into calories. Some of it's used for structure. again, those amino acids are not converted immediately into caloric energy. Some of them are directly incorporated as structural elements. So how much of that occurs, I don't know. The other thing is some people will notice that they just feel warmer, and so, again, I cannot control my body heat. It's not a voluntary process. So the calories in, calories out, those things don't go into the equation. So you can't control all these other metabolic processes that are go on that are involuntary. So I think the hormonal impact of different types of foods has an impact on that. And I think meat, has a favorable profile. And you are absolutely right. And again, I can't explain it. I'm not trying to, but there are incidents of people that would normally seem to be dramatically in a calorie surplus, and they're losing weight and getting leaner, on this. And again, I know there's a lot of people that will complain about that, but it is what it is. And I don't know, I'm not smart enough to know all the details about the metabolism. I don't think anyone is. And I think that's the point. The people that think they know everything, I would say, you don't know everything.
Well, I've suspected that when it comes to a high protein, high fat diet, the satiety is so much greater than when you're eating a carb based diet, that even if you're going to overeat, it's going to be to a lesser extent than if you were having a loaf of bread. I mean, people grossly underestimate how much they overeat when they're eating things like bread and potatoes and rice. It just gets so easy to get it to 1,000 calories over where your basal metabolic rate. It's pretty hard to overeat steak and butter. I mean, it really is not that. It's really difficult sometimes to stuff yourself because it's so satisfying.
Well, I would say the steak part is the butter. You can quickly get a lot of calories in through butter because it's concentrated fat, and I think it's less nutrition. But I think again, what did human beings eat 50,000 years ago? They weren't eating all this other stuff. They were eating probably fatty cuts of meat, and I mean it's hard to do that consistently day in and day out. Now you may be able to gorge for a day or two, but 3 days later you're going to be like, man, I'm full. I can't because I think our body will naturally regulate this stuff. Now the problem is with the 99% of the people out there, our human diet right now is not designed for humans, and the food we eat is so devoid of any nutrition. I mean, it's calorie dense, but it's not particularly nutrition dense. And so what happens is you eat all this food, you eat the Pringles potato chips or the Lay's potato chips, and you can't stop eating them. Well, that's because you're not getting any damn nutrition. You're getting the calories, but you're not getting the micronutrients, the vitamins, and things like that your body's asking for.
Is there any, now doing this for such a prolonged period of time, is there any supplementation or any other foods as an adjunct that you think you might add in to for a more optimal result? Anything like, I was thinking of game meats. A lot of people don't eat them, but something like a desiccated liver or fish oil, something along those lines that doesn't deviate too much from animal flesh only.
Viscera are important.
There's no doubt that organ meats are nutrient dense. I mean, liver concentrates, vitamin A, vitamin C, all these other things, kidneys, the thymus, the other sweetbreads, the organ meats are definitely nutrient dense. And I think there are people that have issues absorbing nutrients. There are people like gastric bypass patients are a classic. I mean, we create these people, and I think, my view on gastric bypass surgery is, gosh, it seems like not something I'd recommend for many people. I think there's very few people that really should pursue that, and I know that's controversial, but you create a state of a situation where people just no longer for the rest of their life can absorb certain nutrients, and so those people might benefit from higher levels of nutrition. I think people that start out particularly nutritionally challenged can benefit from organ meats. I think once you get to where you're kind of topped off, I don't know that you need that for maintenance. I think some people will find that electrolyte supplementation will help, particularly in the beginning, as they're transitioning. I still use a lot of salt. I salt load before I exercise right now. It's something that, I don't know if you know Mark Lobliner.
I know of him, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a bodybuilder doing a carnivore diet now, and he's, he sells a lot of whey protein, so he's got to take whey protein, which I think you don't really need it. But he, he's worried about his pump because he's a bodybuilder, and I said, let's make sure your electrolytes are topped off because the pump is mostly water, right? Mm-hmm. And what helps with water is electrolytes. And so if you take in enough electrolytes, you're going to have intravascular water, you're going to have intracellular water is going to be up. One of the things that's interesting about glucose and why the carbs probably do this, because if you look at the effect of glucose in stimulating insulin and insulin's effect on the renal handling of electrolytes, the net effect is a reabsorption of sodium. And so it's probably the water from the carbs and the electrolytes that's directly responsible for this pump. So these guys are noticing, as long as I keep my electrolytes topped off, I get these big, vascular pumps when I'm bodybuilding. So that's a question I get all the time. My interest is not so much in bodybuilding; it's more about health, because I think the more fascinating stuff about this is people getting rid of diseases. The performance stuff is cool; it's neat, it's nice people are doing that, but the fact that people are getting rid of Crohn's disease or getting rid of rheumatoid arthritis, to me, is particularly exciting, is what keeps me motivated on doing this. But as far as other supplements going, I don't think fish oil is necessary. Most of the fish oil you buy in the capsules, they get oxidized. The quality is a concern. If you're really worried about it, eat a piece of fish. You're going to be better off eating a fatty piece of fish. Where it's sourced may be an issue for some people, but game meats can be fine. The one problem with game meat, particularly, I know Joe Rogan's a big fan of game meat, but one of the issues with game meat is it's often not fatty enough. If that's
super lean,
yeah, it's really lean, and so you can't survive on that for long periods of time. Now, bodybuilders, as you know, will go through a cut where they'll lean meat. They'll really do that for a long chicken breast. The typical bodybuilder, they'll get lean, but once you get down to whatever 4 or 5% body fat, life is not so good for very long.
No, it is not,
and you can't tolerate that long. And so that's what lean meat does to you on a chronic basis. That's why human beings that's why we have essential fats. Human beings need fat in their diet chronically. Now, I'm relatively lean, but I'm not bodybuilder lean. But I'm sitting there eating 4 or 5 pounds of steak a day.
But I think you're more of what is appealing to men and women as far as the physique goes. What you have obtained at age 51. At age 51 is far more appealing than a 4 or 5% body fat bodybuilder, which, as I pointed out, I say I'm not a man of science, but I know that if you get your body into a condition where women have no period and guys have no boner, that can't be good. Yeah, that can't fucking be good.
I wake up every day with a damn rock hard erection at 4:30.
Very.
I'm 51, and my libido is great, and my performance is good. And like I said, I'm doing this for function, and that's what I'm. If I were to get down to 6% body fat, which I probably could if I really wanted to, my performance would fall off, and that's not what I'm shooting for.
Well, the impressive thing about you is there's not a lot, but there's plenty. If I went around, especially at Gold's Gym in Venice where I train, there's plenty of guys in their 50s who lift super heavy.
Yeah.
But they are hunched over and they can't walk upstairs. You are dunking basketballs. You have what looks like you're sometimes doing like 60-inch box jumps. I mean, and then we've already pointed out the amazing power endurance feats on the Concept 2 rower. Is that why you found it so important to incorporate things like med ball work and jump squats to keep that kind of power movement going?
Yeah, I mean, and I see that. I see the guys, the older guys that are, a lot of them are taking some drugs and stuff like that to get big and strong, and they don't move very well. You see them, they're strong, they can bench a lot, but they just don't look like they're very comfortable. They don't move particularly well. I don't think they could run very fast if you asked them to. Maybe some of them could. But I think, I love using these animal analogies, and people think I'm an idiot for it, but I'll do it anyway, because I think that, if we look at an animal, if I'm a lion, I'm going to hunt through a pack of animals. Which one am I going to take out? I'm going to take out the slow, weak one, right? I'm going to look for the one that can't run very fast. And I think, again, as human beings, we should be able to move quickly as long as we possibly can. And in order to do that, I use this example. Let's say a 100-meter dash. Okay, let's say if you can't run a 100-meter dash as a male in under 15 seconds, you're going to get eaten by a bear or a lion, or you're going to get chronic disease and die. And I think it's kind of the same thing. And we ask, what does it require to run a 100-meter dash in 15 seconds? By the way, 15 seconds is a world record for the 85-year-olds. Okay, so as a 50-year-old, I can't be an 85-year-old guy. I'm kind of pissed off.
Sure,
got to be able to do this. I need to go out and run a 100-meter dash because I keep talking about this stuff, but what does it take to run a 100-meter dash in 15 seconds? One, you can't be a fat ass. If you got a big, giant gut and you've got 50 pounds extra gut, you're not running that fast.
Nope.
Your joints can't hurt. If your joints are hurting you, it's going to be hard to do that. What seems to help joint pain is diet. Clearly, I'm seeing that over and over again. So get your diet in line. What else does it take to run, that fast? Is you got to have the requisite amount of strength. If you're not fast enough, look at sprinters. These guys are strong. They're jacked. They can produce the power. You got to have the strength to do it. And then it's the application. And that's why jumping, running, and practicing those things is so important. So that's why I just look at it in that sense. Now, interestingly, humans, when they hunt animals, they take the big, huge fat animals.
We have guns. That's why.
Well, but I mean, even indigenous tribes, when they're hunting with spears and stuff like that, they'll because they know they need the fattest animals.
Sure.
So they'll hunt that. But regular animals, lions and what's up, they'll go for the skinny, weak ones and eat the old ones.
It makes a lot of sense. Drew, anything else on your end?
He might have dropped off.
I think we lost.
Oh no, he's
do I have questions on my end?
Yeah. Do you have any other questions or any other?
Well, I have a bunch of them. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sort of
Please.
taking notes as we go here. Have you heard of these sort of genetic testing kits now that are available for sort of muscle performance and dietary recommendations? I know it's in its infancy. I know a lot of it's inferential.
I'm waiting for my results. I did Fit DNA, and I'm waiting for my results.
Right, and I did Fitness Genes, and I told Mike anecdotally, it confirmed everything that I knew about for sure my muscle performance. The dietary stuff, I don't even remember what he told me. It was not that useful, I didn't think. But
it was mostly jizz that I think
stuff,
you recommended that you drink.
The muscle performance issues in terms of what I was designed to do fit my entire life of weightlifting, and I've had trainers my entire life trying to pull me away from what I do naturally. And so when we were talking on our last podcast about going back to powerlifting, that also fits with what I am genetically, and lo and behold, I am now better just adding a couple power lifts in.
Yeah, I'm aware of some of the genetic stuff with what sort of exercise is supposed to benefit people. I don't know much beyond just being aware of it. Like I said, I'm sure that it's going to have some effect. I think there's some general truths from most people. I think everybody's going to benefit from some form of strength training.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense to do some sort of conditioning. I mean, those are just some sort of general things, as far as how you tailor that, how much you put into that, how much of that, because a lot of this like 23andMe stuff, it's almost for entertainment purposes only. I mean, a lot of people do this stuff, and the information is not particularly useful. If it's going to show you're going to get Huntington's disease, that might be useful information. But some of this stuff on what diet to eat, all these other things that don't necessarily hold up under real world circumstances, and so. It'd be interesting. I'm open to see how that works. I mean, again, if I get a genetic test, hopefully it's going to say I'm a human being, and I'll say eat a damn steak and lift heavy, and that's what's going to happen for me.
The reason I got into it, the reason I got into it was I wanted to find out. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was the one thing that jumped out at me was in terms of I have all this slow twitch. The low rep, high intensity, big weight was sort of what I was suited up for. And he said specifically, they told me there was something about my speed where I could be quick, but I somehow couldn't use energy beyond a few seconds, and so I would not be fast. And I said, Jesus, that was my entire football career as a high school student. I was the fastest person off the line. I could get into the backfield before anyone had gotten out of their stance yet. And then if they took 3 steps away from me, it was over for me. I was just watch the play go by. That was it.
You should have been a shot putter then.
I did do shot putting. I did do a lot of that kind of stuff. I wasn't quite big enough for that, but I did do that kind of stuff. And I should have done is trained for like a discus or something. That would have been perfect.
That's exactly why I wanted to get the testing, was not necessarily to figure out what diet's the best. What's my breakdown of fast twitch and slow twitch? How do I metabolize caffeine? I mean, is it even a good idea for me to be taking stimulants? And that's another thing I actually wanted to talk to you about. Is what's your take on things like coffee, black coffee, and because I know you're a big on Twitter, it's meat and water, stick to it. But are you a fan of black coffee, things that don't have any caloric value?
Yeah, I'm kind of a weird guy. I never really enjoyed coffee. I never liked it. I got through whatever military and medical school and all that residency.
That's the most blasphemous thing you've said.
I know. But here, what I think is, what I'm seeing, because observing people, some people do fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people will use coffee as an appetite suppressant, and they'll use it in that capacity. I know there's a big craze about the putting fat in your coffee and doing that and fasting that way. I'm not a big fan of fasting in the context of a nutritious diet. I think it might be helpful if you're eating junk food, but I think that caffeine for some people, there's thoughts that it may interfere with certain mineral absorption. So caffeine may have that effect on people. Obviously, it's a stimulant. Obviously, it has a performance enhancement for many people. We know that you can exercise at a higher intensity to lower heart rate with caffeine. I played with it a little bit. I was taking caffeine pills. I didn't see a big, huge improvement in me, and I just said I don't need it. So, But I'm kind of agnostic about whether you should do coffee. I think you should test it. Certainly test it out, see how you do with it. I tell people, don't make coffee your meal. Make steak your meal, or steak and eggs your meal. Have your cup of coffee on the side with it. If you really enjoy the cup of coffee, you like the mouthfeel, you like the aroma, or whatever, the ritual that goes around coffee.
Sure.
A lot of people have a ritual with that. But make it as part of your meal. Don't make it your meal, because what happens there is, I don't think this carnivore diet is about weight loss. I mean, a lot of people lose weight, a lot of people get lean. We're seeing that. But my whole underlying point is it's about nutrition. And so if you're hacking your appetite, trying to avoid eating when you're hungry and using caffeine to do that, to me, I think that's a net negative in the long term. Because, what happens when you go on a calorie-restricted diet? It sucks. Right. You fail. You end up with a face full of, face down in a piece of chocolate cake.
And I think it's dysfunctional psychologically. I think it's dysfunctional to try to restrict yourself constantly. I do think there's some upside maybe to like the grit aspect of it, feeling the hunger and embracing it. But like you pointed out, if you're constantly trying different tactics to reduce your hunger, to not feed yourself nutrients that you need, there's something kind of dysfunctional about that,
Yeah,
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question. I wonder how you get your meat. How do you get 5 pounds of meat, and what is that? How do you do that? I know you were talking to Joe about that, and I thought that was interesting. And I noticed you mentioned eggs more than I've heard you mention in the past today. Is that just coincidence, or are you going more in the egg direction?
No, I mean, when I started, particularly when I was a ketogenic diet, I ate a ton of eggs. I mean, I would eat up to a dozen, maybe even 18 in a day. I mean, I ate lots and lots of eggs. As I've gone farther and farther, I just find, to me, just from a satiety standpoint, eggs just don't do it as much, and so I just don't crave it. I know it's crazy to think you only crave one thing after a period of time. For me, I've kind of dissociated myself from the entertainment value of food, and it's just about nutrition for me at this point. Again, I'm in my 50s. I've eaten every cut of food that you can have, and I've had all 31 Baskin-Robbins flavors. Nothing is that exciting anymore. I'm not waiting for the next flavor of Doritos to come out. But for me, eggs they're a very nutritious food. I think they're great. I think if you can have them. Generally, the capacity that I tell people to eat them is eat them as an accompaniment to the meal, to the meat. Like steak and eggs is a great breakfast. Bacon and eggs, that's a great breakfast in my mind. But I find, for me particularly, if I just eat a bunch of eggs by themselves, I'll get gastrointestinal upset. I mean, it'll just mess me up a little bit. And so I find if I eat 3 or 4 eggs with a steak, I'm fine. If I go eating a dozen eggs, which is pretty normal for me, I won't do so well the next day with that. And so, but eggs are fine. I think there's no problem with eggs. And like I said, again, I don't try to be dogmatic. I'm not I know there's certain dietary things where there's a lot of religious sort of context where there's a lot of people, particularly with some of the plant-based diets, people really have a lot of other things that go on besides just nutrition. I don't really care what people eat. I think you should find what works for you. If you find that you can eat meat and eggs, and maybe even you can have some fruit in there or something else that works well, and you've tested it out, and you're pretty certain and you're objective about it, then that's what you need to do. I mean, there's some people that do fine with a little bit of avocado, a little bit of berries here and there, and they do totally fine with this. Again, my thought is meat is the most nutritious thing you can eat. Whether it's steak or liver organ meat, we can argue about that. But generally, again, and this is very simplistic, and I'm a very simple guy. I think in simple terms, but I think that we are taking in animal cells to build animal cells, and that's the most efficient way to do that. You can make that. You can cobble together nutrition via a plant-based diet. Certainly, there's people that do that. They're proving that all the time. Is it the most efficient way to do that? Do you have to eat 6-8 times a day to do that and supplement like crazy to make that happen? Is there negative side effects that come with that? Certainly, there's a lot of people that go on these plant-based diets, particularly vegan diets, and then there's a huge attrition rate where they find their health suffers. Yep. And I think that's, if we're going to go in that direction, we need to realize, what are you going to do with 84% of the population that says they can't stick to the diet? Now what are you going to do? You're going to deal with all these sick people. So, but yeah, the question about eggs, I think eggs are fine. You just have to kind of, see what your balance is and how you tolerate them.
What about high-fat dairy?
5 pounds of meat. How do you get that in?
Oh yeah. So how do I get it? You mean as far as eating it? I mean, I usually cook up a couple steaks. Yeah. I mean, like this morning,
for somebody that wants to fall into the diet, I'm sure you can go on the website and we can follow some stuff. But it's like that's your freezer's gonna be full. Your refrigerator.
Yeah. I mean, I buy in bulk. I mean, I find a sale, I buy in bulk. Again, I know this is controversial. From a human health standpoint, I don't think there's any good data. In fact, there's some data that maybe even is opposite to this. It shows that the grass-finished stuff is any more nutritious than the grain-finished. I know there's different omega-6 and omega-3 ratios, and there's different things of conjugated linoleic acid, some of those other things, but the amounts are really minuscule in the differences when you look at absolute amounts. So for now, I mean, if you're going to afford this, it's hard to pay for 4 pounds of grass-finished beef for the average person. It's just not practical. And so if you're going to say something, everyone has
$90.
Well, if you have to say everybody has to spend $90 a day eating meat, no one's going to be able to do that. It's just not even practice. It's not an option for most people. Most people that do this can't afford it. They're doing fine without that. Now, beyond that point, there's the environmental aspect and the ethical endpoint. And I think we can, what people don't understand about how cattle in particular are raised is even if it's a grain-finished animal, it spends 80% of its life on pasture, regardless. They go for the last few months. That's when they're given grains, and it's not that they're getting grains the whole time. They're getting forage. They slowly incorporate that in there to have them gain those last bit of weight on there. And so, so I just buy. I use my freezer. Yeah, I fill it up. I'll go to the butcher and I'll call them. I'll say, hey man, give me 50 pounds of your ribeye at $5 a pound. Load up on that stuff. Throw it in my freezer, and then I eat for a couple of weeks, and that works out pretty well.
So awesome. I have a boner. What about?
Do you eat you eat sausages and things, other kinds of sort of processed-y kind of things, or no?
Not often. Sometimes, like if I'm at a social event and they've got sausage, I might eat that. A lot of the problem with sausage is it has a lot of junk in it. You don't know what's in it.
Yeah.
They put a lot of gluten and soy and fillers and crap in there. So I'm not a big sausage fan. Occasionally I'll have bacon. I know it's kind of interesting. A lot of people really like bacon. The longer I've done this, bacon has lost its appeal to me, which is
really
it's almost crazy to say that, but I like it every once in a while. But it's not like I'm craving bacon all the time. I'd rather have a nice fatty piece of steak, cooked medium rare, a little bit of salt on there, and I'm as happy as can be. I'm with
you there. I'm with you there. I mean, I still crave bacon. Yeah, but if I had to be locked on an island for the rest of my life, if I was relegated to eating one thing, I'm with you. I think a ribeye. Yeah, it's hard to beat.
Well, and I think that the argument could be made. Like I just got back from Iceland, and I think those people were locked on an island since the 800 AD, and they basically ate. They ate lamb basically. They had lamb and some fish, but I mean those people had a really close monitor. This is kind of interesting. In Iceland, which only has a population of 300,000 people, they've got like 1,200 people signed up as carnivores right now. That's more than 1% of their population.
Wow.
Well, it's getting close to a huge percent of their population because they get it there. They understand where they came from historically, and they understand they lived on this frozen rock, and you weren't getting fruits and vegetables.
And they have a legacy of being some of the strongest people on the planet.
You've got John Paul Sigmarsson, you've got Magnus Fermagnus, 8 world's strongest man titles between them from this tiny country of 300,000 people, plus all the CrossFit champions. Yeah. And these guys are putting out beasts. And the other thing about Iceland, which I think is really cool, if you look at the people that live over 100, the centenarians, Iceland has one of the highest amount of centenarians per capita of anywhere in the world. So not only are they big, strong, robust people, they are kick-ass athletes, eating a largely animal-based diet, but they live super long as well, which I think goes against all this.
Speaks volumes.
It goes against some of the blue zone hype that's out there. And I think again, if we look into longevity, there's so many things that impact longevity besides diet that I just don't even like to look at those population studies.
I think that people often neglect the biggest one, and that's stress and lifestyle choices. We all are overworked and are all kind of underappreciate our leisure time in America, or in the West, I should say, and not just America. That has to be a bigger factor than anything.
Well, the biggest predictor of longevity is socioeconomic status, and stress goes out. If you're living some poor guy in the slum of Rwanda, you're not going to live to 100. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Western society, you look at countries with good stability, good access to health care, and decent wealth like Monaco, Switzerland, Sweden. These countries lead the world in life expectancy, and it's because of those factors. And they all happen to eat a lot of meat too, which is kind of interesting. But there's a lot of things that go into longevity. So when people talk about longevity, I'm like, you got to control a lot of things, and your genetics play a huge role in that too.
What about low lactose but high fat dairy? Things like some cheeses and heavy cream.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, if they're going to do dairy, they're going to tolerate that a little better. Obviously, there's populations. Again, a lot of people ask me about the genetic impact of diet. What you're designed to eat based on what your ancestry is, and I think, again, when we look at the human evolution, if we go back to Homo habilis, about 3 million years ago. Since that time, we've certainly been eating meat that time, and probably even longer. Some of the Australopithecus and Ardipithecus were meat eaters as well. But we have been tolerating meat forever. Dairy got incorporated into our diet 10,000 years ago. Same thing with grains. A lot of the vegetables that we eat today were not even invented. It's not like there was broccoli growing 20,000 years ago. It was invented by us. We bred it out of like a mustard seed thing or a mustard plant. And so all these vegetables that we see now are new additions to the human diet. And so I think depending on where you lived, you might have more capacity to handle lactose. And we know that. We certainly know that certain populations are lactose intolerant. Certain populations probably do better with certain types of grains. But I think everybody has this sort of at least some capacity to handle meat for sure. But yeah, I think high-fat dairy can be a decent option for many people. I tend to minimize it. I know if I eat a lot of it, I get congested. I don't sleep as well.
Right. It's an adjunct more than it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's flavor it as put it on your hamburger. Put a piece of cheese in your hamburger. Don't sit there and eat a block of cheese and think, I'm getting my fat macros in, because I think that's just, the whole, again, this is, I know a lot of ketogenic guys, they really get hung up on macro counting. And I'm like, no other animal on the planet needs a calculator to tell them what to eat.
Right.
And I don't either, and you don't either. And I think this obsession with measuring everything down to the nearest, molecule is maddening. It's anxiety provoking, and I think it's long-term counterproductive.
At S Baker MD.
Go
ahead.
Mike, I want to make a couple comments real quick.
Sure.
Is that I'm not you made a point about stress. I'm not a huge. I don't push that as much as maybe historically it has been pushed. I think distress, helplessness is problematic. I think if you don't exercise and attend your diet because of preoccupations in your life, that's a problem. But I think stress can be really phenomenally, grit and stress and overcoming. I mean, I think it'd be very healthy, but
physically and psychologically, let me rephrase that. Physically and psychologically, I think you're exactly right, Drew, that the body needs stress. You need stress to kind of build your grit. Maybe it's anxiety, I guess, the modern way of life.
But I think the helplessness is what it is. And certainly if you have anxiety associated with depression or something, anxiety from trauma, that kind of stuff, or anxiety because it's usually because you can't move forward, you can't do what you want, it makes you feel helpless or powerless, that kind of thing. That I understand is problematic. But I want to say that, I used to walk around. I did a lot of nursing homes back in the day when I was, practicing full time, and one of them was a dementia nursing, Alzheimer's place. And the first time I started working there, I walked around. I was looking at all the patients, and all the men, and I mean every single one of them, had a picture at their bedside with them in the prime of their life, and it was always an admiral. They had a car dealership. They had these were captains of industry and leaders. Huge, and I thought, oh, there it is. It's stress. These guys were stressed out, man. That's why they have Alzheimer's. And I talked to their families to see if there was some sort of common phenomenon there. And the only common thread I could find, they didn't sleep. And now we know that sleep is an issue, and that is where stress can come to bear on us. So I just want to make that point about sleep being important. And the other, you guys can chew on that in a second, but I want to make one other quick point, which is that for people that object philosophically to meat and eating meat, I heard an interesting argument the other day. I'm going to remain agnostic. I'm not going to support it or undermine it. But an interesting point is that these domesticated animals would not exist, would not have life, did they not have this symbiotic relationship with humans. And they live, most of them, a pretty long life under this symbiotic status that we maintain for them. And it's this, it's not a lot different than a dog or a cat. They would not be out existing in nature were they not serving humanity in some way, which is kind of an interesting philosophical argument.
Yeah, if you look at ruminant animals in the wild, most of their young don't make it to adulthood. They're killed by predators. And so these cows that live to, 2 or 3 years, or a year or two before we eat them are actually living a longer life than they probably would if they were left to their own devices in the wild, because a wolf or some other predator would take them down and eat them, and they would kill them in not a very humane way.
That's a big point, is that, I've just got into hunting now in my 38th year on the planet, and it's just been this year that I've gotten into it. And you will very quickly realize, not just reading about it, but actually being out there in a hunting experience, that if you don't kill this animal in an immediate way by putting a arrow or a bullet in its brain, something else is going to eat it butt first, and it's going to be horrible, and it's going to freeze to death. Or the alternative. I think people a lot of times have this idea that if you shoot a deer, you're taking away from its Bambi-like existence. Not true. If you shoot a deer, you're doing it a huge, huge favor because now a bear can't eat it by the asshole.
Well, I mean, we've really detached ourselves from what really goes on in nature. I mean, it's kind of, I call it the Disneyification of nature. I mean, we have a generation of kids now that think, like this movie Zootopia where the fox is playing with the rabbit. I'm like, no, the rabbit's going to get eaten by the fox. But, Dr. Drew, your point about Alzheimer's is pretty important because I think, one of the things we're seeing, a lot of people are linking Alzheimer's and calling it type 3 diabetes. And I think we have this looming epidemic of dementia coming. And I think it's right on the heels of this diabetes, chronic disease issue, and I think that is so, as you know, mental health care, particularly things like dementia, are incredibly costly. I mean, it costs a family a ton of money to care for somebody who's demented, and I just don't know where that's gonna end up bankrupting a lot of people, if not the country in general. So we have this imperative to kind of fix this. The diabetes is inconvenient. People have to take their blood pressure. They inject insulin, whatever. But once you get demented, man, it's game over for a lot of people. And so,
and the point you made about inflammation may figure in big with this too. So it's again important thing to focus on.
Yep. Meatheals.com is the website. At Shawn Baker 1967 on Instagram. At SBakerMD on Twitter. And then also give people a little bit of information on the carnivore training system because I'm a big proponent. I'm a customer and I'm a believer, and I want people to get access to that information.
Yeah, it's just like I said, I've been training now for 40 years, and I've broken records in all different types of different avenues of sports, whether it was powerlifting, Highland Games. I won the world championship in Highland Games. As a master. Track and field, and then rowing now. So all these different disciplines, I've trained with all these Olympic athletes. So I've kind of distilled what I found to be, effective, efficient, and safe. Because I think there's a lot of inefficiency I see in the gym. People wasting their time doing stuff. I'm like, why in the hell are you doing that exercise? What do you think you're benefiting out of it? They're not really doing what they should be to get the most out of whatever particular modality they're using. I incorporate that. It's like a 12-week training program for people. Just kind of a general get healthy, get functional, like I talked about the 100-meter dash, the things that allow us to do that, the strength, a little bit of hypertrophy work, conditioning, the movement, the explosivity. And then I combine that with a diet and just talk to people how to incorporate the diet, how to walk themselves, how to transition into the diet, the common pitfalls, the physiology that occurs, some of the science behind that. So it's just a little program that people can participate in if they want.
And where can they grab that?
CarnivoreTrainingSystem.com.
There you go. Drew, anything else?
Well, I'm just saying, if I'm not deadlifting 350 in the next couple months, I'm going to be pissed.
All right.
You're my inspiration now. You're my inspiration.
Well,
I got to get there.
Well, let me send me some info, and I can certainly try to assist you in that stuff. But yeah, eat a couple more steaks, and it'll help.
Dr. Baker, it was a pleasure. Thank you for talking to us, and hopefully more people.
I want to echo that. It really was looking forward to this, and you did not disappoint.
Well, good. I'm glad. Hopefully, your listeners will enjoy it.
And hopefully be some more meat eaters after listening to this.
Yeah, it's growing. The movement is growing daily. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's we've got a website. We've got a Facebook group, World Carnivore Tribe, just about to hit 6,000 people, and that's in 2 months. So I mean, we're just going pretty quick on this stuff.
Carnivore Tribe?
World Carnivore Tribe. You get all these people that are doing this and trying it out. We got people that have been doing it they've been doing it for 20 years and 10 years and 5 years. They're kind of helping the newbies out and the rookies out. And so pretty interesting stuff. But, go look at the mental health aspect of this meatheals.com. You'll see how many of the people report improvements in mental health, which I think is fascinating.
There you go. Swole Patrol on Podbean, Google, iTunes, of course. Please subscribe, give us some 5-star ratings. Listen, but just listen. We like doing this, and we want to continue doing it. So there you go. It is Facebook.com/Swole Patrol Podcast. Also, Facebook.com World Carnivore Tribe is where you can find out more information about Dr. Baker. And then, as I pointed out before, SBakerMD on Twitter, Shawn Baker 1967 on Instagram, and then meatheals.com.
Friends at Bergamet are back. It's, of course, a brand that's made an impact on us here. It makes a variety of supplements. They use the extract of the bergamot citrus fruit. It's full of polyphenols. It's a supplement that acts as a natural statin and may improve a number of cardiovascular conditions and fatty liver disease, as well as potentially high blood pressure and other things associated with the metabolic syndrome. Now the makers are bringing you a formulation called Bergamet Sport that provides all the same cardiovascular benefits, but with some additives designed to aid athletes and those with an active lifestyle. Bergamet Sport may help improve stamina as well as reduce recovery time and muscle inflammation. In an ongoing study, professional soccer players were asked to use Bergamet Sport, and the documented improvements have been impressive. I use the product. First Lady of Love uses the product, the Bergamet Femme. Physicians and cardiologists around the world are recommending it. For a limited time, our listeners can save 10% on their order by entering the code DRDREW at checkout. That's Dr. Drew at checkout, all one word. To try Bergamet Sport for yourself, visit bergamet.com. That is BERGAMET.com. Or also you can click on the Bergamet banner at drdrew.com. Be sure to talk to your physician before you use any Bergamet products. In fact, before you use any product or supplement, be sure to talk to your doctor.
Hey everybody, it is the Swole Patrol podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Mike Catherwood, and Dr. Drew is at Dr. Drew, of course. Join the email list today. Send your questions, drdrew.com/contact, and put Swole at the top of the email so we can get your comments. And this will get you a weekly email reminder with a link to this show and all the great shows that Dr. Drew and I do, and all the shows that Dr. Drew does by himself, and of course with Adam Carolla, the great Ace Man. Please tell a friend and subscribe on iTunes. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars. And on Podbean or Google Play. All 3 help us out. We also are on YouTube/Dr. Drew, and hope you can give us all your comments, even if you're a troll and you want to destroy our feelings and our emotions. Support our sponsors and the show. Click on the banners on drdrew.com for the links to products for special discounts for the products Dr. Drew and I endorse 100%. Send questions and comments to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Swole Patrol Podcast, or on Twitter at Swole Patrol Pod. Also browse drdrew.com for the This Life podcast that I co-host on occasion, and all the other shows available like Adam and Dr. Drew and the This Life podcast. A lot of great stuff. Don't forget to check me out on K-Rock in the mornings on the Kevin and Bean Show. And be good. Be swole. #Swole Patrol.